Think back to your last New Year's. All those promises,
What?
right?
The resolutions.
Yeah.
Hit the gym more, eat better.
Exactly. Finally start that side project.
We all do it.
But here's a stat that kind of stops you in your tracks. Professor John C. Norcross. He found less than 10% of those resolutions actually stick.
Less than 10%.
Wow. So, okay, let's unpack this. Why? Why is there such a huge gap between what we want to do and, what we actually end up doing?
It's a really interesting paradox, isn't it? So many people genuinely want to improve, but making that jump from just intending to do something to actually consistently doing it,
Yeah.
it can feel impossible sometimes.
Totally. Like scaling a cliff face.
Yeah. What are the real forces holding us back?
And that's exactly what we're diving deep into today, self-discipline.
Mm.
We've been reading Daniel Walter's book, The Power of Discipline, How to Use Self-Control and Mental Toughness to Achieve Your Goals.
Great title.
And it's just packed with insights. Actually, Kurt Kottmeyer, this guy spent like half a century studying success.
50 years. Wow.
Yeah. He concluded that, okay, there might be 999 other principles for success, but none of them matter, like at all, without self-discipline.
So it's foundational.
He literally called it the key that unlocks personal fulfillment. Just think about that for a second.
It really suggests it's not just a nice to have, is it? It's like the absolute bedrock. Everything else is built on top.
Without it, the best ideas, the biggest dreams,
They just evaporate.
pretty much. So if you're listening right now and you've got those goals kind of stuck in the someday pile,
The ones that never quite happen.
yeah, those ones, this deep dive is really designed for you. We're going to explore the science behind it, look at the sneaky things that trip us up.
Those invisible obstacles.
Right. And the daily habits that can actually make a difference. And crucially, how to push through when it gets uncomfortable, how to stay focused.
So like a practical guide.
Consider this your personal roadmap, helping you bridge that intention-action gap, finally.
Okay, so what's actually going on in our brains then? When we manage self-control or when we fail, it can't just be this vague willpower thing.
Oh, absolutely not. There's real biology behind it. Back in 2009, these neuroscientists, Todd Hare and Colin Kammerer, they used fMRI so they could literally watch brain activity when people face that classic test, small reward now or a bigger one later.
The classic dilemma.
And guess what? Different parts of the brain lit up depending on the choice people made.
That makes sense. Like the immediate reward hits the pleasure centers, maybe.
Exactly. While waiting, choosing that delayed gratification engages the parts involved in planning, thinking ahead.
Future-oriented thinking.
And this links right into the famous Stanford marshmallow experiment from way back in 1972.
Oh yeah, everyone knows that one, the kids in the marshmallows.
Right. One now or wait and get two. But here's the really interesting part, the key takeaway from later research.
There's more to it.
Yeah. A 2011 reevaluation looked at those same kids, now adults, and the ones who could resist the marshmallow back then. They showed increased activity in their prefrontal cortex. It's like your brain CEO handles the complex thinking.
Executive control.
Right. And there were also differences in the ventral striatum. That's an area linked to rewards, addictions, immediate pleasure, especially when they were choosing between, say, healthy and unhealthy stuff.
So that ability to wait, to delay gratification, it seems like a really strong predictor of success later on in lots of different areas.
Exactly. It's not just about marshmallows. It reflects this fundamental capacity for long-term thinking, sticking with goals. The study suggested even that simple choice had lasting effects.
Wow.
But here's the good news, the really good news for everyone listening. The research doesn't say self-discipline is fixed. Like you're either born with it or you're not.
That's crucial.
It's a skill. Think of it like lifting weights. You work a muscle, it gets stronger. You can do the same with the self-control parts of your brain.
That's so much more empowering, isn't it? Knowing you can actually cultivate it. Practice makes perfect, or at least better.
Absolutely. But like any muscle, willpower can get tired, fatigued in the short term.
Right.
Will Baumeister did this study in '96. It's pretty famous now. He had people resist either yummy sweet treats or, get this, radishes.
Radishes, okay.
Bitter radishes. Then everyone had to try and solve this really frustrating puzzle. And the radish eaters, the ones who'd already used up willpower saying no to the sweets,
They gave up faster.
much faster. It was like their willpower tank was running on empty.
That's often called ego depletion, right? Like a battery draining with each act of self-control.
Yeah, exactly. So after a day full of tough choices, resisting temptation later, It's genuinely harder.
That explains the evening Netflix binge after a hard day at work.
Totally. And stress. Let's not forget stress.
Oh, yeah. Big impact.
When we're stressed, that fight or flight kicks in, which is great if a tiger's chasing you.
But not so great for long-term planning.
Right. It actually impairs the prefrontal cortex, that CEO part of the brain, makes us more impulsive, focused only on immediate relief.
So reaching for comfort food when stressed.
Yeah,
There's a biological reason for that.
definitely. Chronic stress really undermines our self-discipline, like trying to navigate with a dodgy GPS.
Compromises our decision-making.
So what's the core principle here? Walter boils it down pretty simply. As, mentally stable adults, we generally know what we should be doing.
Right from wrong, basically. Or at least what helps versus hinders our goals.
We know choosing Netflix over working on that big project isn't getting us closer, right?
Usually, yeah.
So discipline is just doing what needs to be done, even when you absolutely, positively do not feel like it.
That's the hard part, the not feeling like it part.
Totally. And the key ingredient, the thing that makes it all work, consistency.
Can't just do it sporadically.
Nope. Slacking off every other day just won't cut it. Consistency builds that momentum. That's how dreams start actually happening.
It really circles back to habits, doesn't it? Making discipline a regular practice, not a huge effort every single time.
Exactly. And the more we practice, the more our brains can actually rewire, kind of accept discipline as the new normal. It goes from being this constant battle to just what you do,
Okay, so it becomes less effortful over time.
hopefully. And speaking of effort, why bother? What are the real, tangible benefits of putting in the work to become more self-disciplined?
Well, one huge one is self-confidence. It gets a massive
Oh,
boost.
so?
When you consistently act in line with your goals, your values,
Mm-hmm.
you build this deep sense of competence, mastery even.
That makes sense. Think about how often we set a goal, maybe a New Year's resolution,
Yeah.
and a few months later we slip back. That inactivity, knowing you should be doing something like wanting to lose weight but staying on the couch,
It eats away at you.
it really does. It chips away at your self-worth. Years can pass, and if you still feel stuck, it takes a real toll on your self-esteem.
So self-discipline is like an antidote to feeling stuck, feeling inadequate.
Totally. You take control, you reclaim that sense of agency.
Yeah.
And it's not just about the big goals. Walter makes another interesting point. Self-disciplined people are less easily offended.
Really? Why is that?
Well, think about it. If you have a strong sense of who you are, what you stand for, you're less likely to take criticism personally, even constructive feedback.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Because your self-worth isn't so dependent on what other people think.
Exactly. You're more confident, more emotionally calm. So little insults or critiques, they just kind of roll off your back.
Less reactive.
Right. In fact, disciplined people often value constructive criticism. They see it as a tool for growth, for becoming even better.
So it fosters this inner strength, resilience.
Yeah. Self-discipline isn't just about getting stuff done. It's about building a stronger, more resilient you from the inside out.
A mindset of continuous improvement. Seeing challenges as opportunities, not threats.
Exactly. Now, we all know making changes isn't easy. Sometimes it feels like there's this invisible force just holding you back, keeping you stuck.
Yeah, in the comfort zone, even when you want out.
Walter talks about this. It's called the status quo bias.
Ah, yes. This is a really important one to understand if you want to change things. It's basically our natural tendency to prefer things stay the same.
Even if changing would be way better.
Right, even if the current situation isn't great.
It's that feeling of being trapped, isn't it? Like staying in a relationship that's not working anymore or a job that's safe but just boring.
Soul crushing, yeah. He brings in the sunk cost fallacy, too.
Oh, right. Explain that one.
It's the idea that we keep investing time, money, emotion into something just because we've already put so much in, even if it's clearly not working anymore.
So you stick with the bad investment because you hate admitting the loss.
Pretty much. It's all part of that general inertia, that resistance to change.
And then there's loss aversion theory.
Mm-hmm. We hate losing things.
More than we like gaining things, apparently. Even potentially better things.
Exactly. So even a positive change, like moving to a nicer house.
Feels hard.
Yeah, because we focus on what we might lose. The familiarity, the old routine, even just the hassle of packing. We weigh potential losses more heavily than potential gains.
That explains why we stick with okay instead of going for great.
It often does. The fear of losing what we have is powerful.
Another factor is the fear of regret.
Yes.
Yeah.
What if I make the change and it's a disaster?
Right. I shouldn't have done that. And we worry about being judged by others if things go wrong.
So we default back to what feels safe, comfortable, even if it's not what we really want deep down.
That fear of judgment can be surprisingly strong.
Definitely. Social factors play a big role.
And then there's a really sneaky one, the mere exposure effect.
Oh, I know this one. The more you see or hear something, the more you like it.
Exactly. Like that annoying song on the radio that eventually grows on you.
Uh,
Well, this can trap us in bad situations just because they become familiar. We get used to them.
it's a double-edged sword, though, isn't it? It can help good habits stick once they become familiar. But it makes breaking bad habits we're used to really, really hard, even if we know they're bad for us.
Walter gives examples of the internal talk, like, well, I've always done it this way.
Or, why rock the boat? Things are stable.
Yeah. And he emphasizes that while this bias gives us a sense of safety, predictability,
It kills dreams.
it really does. It stops us pursuing what we truly hope for, leads to that long-term regret, that awful what-if feeling.
That tension between safety and potential, security versus growth, it's fundamental.
So how do we fight back? How do we break free from this? He suggests a practical tool, the thought evaluation exercise.
Okay, what does that involve?
You take paper, divide it into 4 boxes,
Right.
and you systematically list advantages of staying the same, disadvantages of staying the same, advantages of the alternative, disadvantages of the alternative.
So a pro-con list, but more structured, covering both options.
Exactly. And he says, take your time, revisit it the next day, maybe even get a trusted second opinion, and really try to strip the emotion out of it. Look at it logically.
That forces a more objective look, doesn't it? Helps you see past the comfort of the familiar and weigh the real long-term pros and cons.
It's about actively challenging those ingrained habits, those beliefs that keep you stuck, making conscious choices aligned with your goals, not just drifting.
Bringing those unconscious forces into the light so you can counteract them.
Exactly. Pave the way for real change.
Okay, that's the status quo bias. What else gets in the way?
Well, there's another fascinating one Walter covers. It's called the Dunning-Kruger effect.
Ah, yes, the knowing you don't know phenomenon. Or rather, not knowing you don't know.
Exactly. Have you ever met someone who's, frankly, not very good at something, but they are completely blissfully unaware of it?
Oh, definitely. The person who thinks their jokes are hilarious, but crickets. Or the colleague who thinks they're amazing, but, well, aren't.
That's the Dunning-Kruger effect in action. It's incompetence coupled with a lack of awareness of that incompetence. Walter calls it a double burden.
Because they keep messing up, and they don't even realize they need to improve. Makes it hard to help them.
Totally. And the original researchers, Dunning and Kruger at Cornell,
Yeah.
they found this effect is pretty common when testing things like humor, logic, grammar. The people who scored lowest, they were often the ones who most overestimated their own abilities.
Why is that?
Because they lacked the metacognitive skills, the ability to accurately judge their own performance. They couldn't see their own flaws.
Metacomprehension, metamemory, metacognition, basically awareness of their own thinking and abilities.
Exactly. They can't self-critique effectively. And this relates directly to self-discipline.
How so?
It's easy to overestimate your own self-discipline, to think you've totally mastered productivity or resisting temptation.
Ah, so Dunning-Kruger is a warning against complacency. Don't assume you've got it all figured out.
Right. Because often the more you actually learn about something, the more you realize how much you don't know. True experts are often more humble.
That makes sense. Increased familiarity reveals the depth of the subject.
So what's the solution? How do we avoid falling into this trap?
Walter says it's about balance. Having confidence, sure, but also being genuinely open to constructive criticism.
He uses the example of thinking you're a great driver. Until you take an advanced driving course and the instructor tells you you're actually below average.
Ouch.
Yeah. The key is accepting that feedback, even if it stings, and using it to improve, not just dismissing it.
That requires a growth mindset, doesn't it? Believing you can improve, that abilities aren't fixed. Seeing feedback is helpful, not an attack.
Definitely. And he suggests some practical strategies.
Okay, like what?
Continuous self-development, always learning,
Yeah.
actively seeking objective feedback, maybe through courses, apps that track scores, mentors.
Getting external validation, basically.
Right. Also, hanging out with people who are more competent in areas you want to improve. Not to compare yourself negatively, but to learn from them.
Learning by osmosis, almost.
Yeah.
And seeing what good really looks like.
Yeah, and consistently tracking your own progress towards goals, keeping it real, avoiding inflated self-views.
These are all ways to build self-awareness, to create feedback loops that give you a more accurate picture.
But he adds a really important warning for you listening.
Okay.
Now that you know about Dunning-Kruger, resist the urge to go around diagnosing everyone else.
Uh-huh. Yeah, probably not helpful.
Not only is it kind of unkind, but hey, you might be exhibiting it yourself in some area without even knowing.
Good point. Self-awareness starts at home. Recognizing the potential for it in ourselves is the first step.
Okay, so we get why discipline is crucial. We've looked at some biology, navigated some mental traps. Now let's get practical. What are some actual daily habits we can build?
Right. This is where theory meets action. Because self-discipline isn't usually about one huge effort, is it?
No, it's the small things, done consistently.
Exactly. Walter says our habits eventually become a reflection of our character.
Like brushing your teeth. You don't really think about it, you just do it. That's the goal for productive habits.
Totally. Successful people, he notes, tend to have consistent daily routines that improve them mentally, physically, spiritually.
Routine provides structure, right? Reduces the need for constant decision-making, saves that precious willpower.
Definitely. And he really emphasizes the morning routine.
Ah, the snooze button dilemma.
Exactly. Hitting snooze, as tempting as it is, can set off this negative chain reaction. Rushed morning, maybe skipping breakfast or grabbing something unhealthy.
Sets a bad tone for the whole day. More reactive, more stressed.
Precisely. And on the flip side, a consistent bedtime routine is just as important.
Winding down properly.
Yeah. Simple things like turning off screens an hour or two before bed. Maybe reading a real book.
Helping your mind and body prepare for sleep.
Right. He recommends aiming for at least 7 hours of good sleep consistently. Not just for productivity tomorrow, but for long-term health too.
Sleep is so foundational, isn't it? Lack of it just messes everything up. Thinking, willpower, mood.
Absolutely critical. Then there's the habit of practicing gratitude.
Gratitude. How does that link to discipline?
Well, Walter mentions a 2016 study that actually found a link. More gratitude meant more self-control. People were more willing to wait for a bigger reward later.
Interesting. So how do you practice it?
Simple things. Making a real effort to say thank you, sincerely, even for small stuff, and maybe taking a few minutes each day to actually write down, say, 5 things you're genuinely grateful for.
Counteracting that tendency to focus on what's missing.
Exactly. Shifting focus to abundance. It fosters a more positive, resilient mindset, which helps with self-control elsewhere.
Okay, that makes sense. What else? Daily goals.
Yes. Setting clear daily goals is key. Breaking down those big, maybe overwhelming long-term aims into smaller, manageable daily steps.
So you build momentum, see progress.
Right. He uses the example of wanting to lose, say, 60 pounds. That sounds huge, daunting.
Totally. Seems impossible.
But break it down. Monthly targets, weekly targets. Then focus on the daily actions, the diet choices, the exercise. It becomes much less intimidating, much more achievable.
But those micro wins build confidence, reinforce that you can do it.
Precisely. And he circles back to good sleep habits again with some extra tips.
Like what?
Limiting daytime naps, maybe 30 minutes max. Avoiding evening stimulants, caffeine, nicotine. Not eating heavy meals late.
Sticking to that relaxing bedtime routine?
Yeah. And optimizing the sleep environment. Comfy bed, dark room, quiet.
All practical stuff we can actually do. To wake up rested, recharged, ready to go with more willpower.
Exactly. Those habits form the foundation.
Okay, so we're building habits. But what about like underlying principles, things that can really amplify our discipline? Walter talks about several powerful ideas. First up, the 40% rule.
The 40% rule. What's that?
It's fascinating. It basically says that when your mind is screaming at you, I'm exhausted, I can't do any more,
Yeah.
you've often only reached about 40% of your actual capacity.
Really? Only 40%. So there's way more in the tank than we think.
Apparently, it challenges our whole perception of limits. We usually stop at the first sign of real discomfort.
But the rule suggests we can push much further.
Exactly. To push past that 40% mark,
Wow.
you have to consciously accept temporary discomfort. Mental, physical.
Yeah.
Most people bail early.
But pushing through?
Yeah.
That builds mental toughness, confidence.
Totally. You realize you're capable of more than you thought. He uses pull-ups as an example. Maybe you think you can only do 10. Take a short break, push for just a few more. You might hit 15, maybe 20. Belief is key. Self-discipline in this sense is endurance.
It sounds like grit, resilience,
Yeah.
pushing through challenges.
Yeah. Then there's arousal control, especially for high-stress situations.
When cortisol and adrenaline are pumping, fight or flight.
Right. which, as we said, can overwhelm the average person, make it hard to think clearly. But elite performers, like Navy SEALs,
They train for this.
exactly, they learn techniques to control that response, like box breathing.
What's that?
Simple but powerful. 4-second inhale, 4-second hold, 4-second exhale, 4-second hold, repeat.
Okay. To
Yeah.
stay calm under pressure.
The goal is to maintain calm, focused awareness, so you can still perform at your best, mentally and physically, even when things are chaotic.
Regulating your physiological state to regain mental clarity. Makes sense.
Then there's Grant Cardone's 10x rule.
10x. Sounds intense.
It is. The idea is set your goals 10 times higher than you initially thought possible,
10 times. Why?
because it forces you to take 10 times more action. It makes you completely reevaluate what's achievable.
So sheer whole perspective.
Right. Back to weight loss, instead of aiming for 10 pounds, aim for 100, even if you don't need to lose 100.
How does that help?
It encourages thinking about permanent lifestyle changes, not just a quick fix. It raises your standards, pushes you to maximize potential.
Breaking free from self-imposed limits, thinking bigger.
Exactly. And finally, the 10-minute rule.
Okay.
This came from a Harvard study comparing humans and chimps choosing treats immediate small versus delayed large.
Yeah,
The chimps were actually better waiting.
seriously.
Why? Things our big brains overthink things. We rationalize, talk ourselves out of the better long-term choice.
So the 10-minute rule helps with that.
Yeah. The idea is when you feel that urge to quit, that resistance, like wanting to stop exercising,
Yeah.
commit to just 10 more minutes. Then see how you feel.
Push through the initial hump.
Often, you find you've got more energy than you thought. It's about overcoming that initial inertia, that first wave of wanting to give up.
Just getting over that hurdle. Interesting.
Now, even when we're trying hard using these principles, there can still be sneaky things holding us back. Unconscious saboteurs.
Things we don't even realize are affecting us.
Exactly. Walter talks about Parkinson's law. You heard of that?
Vaguely. Work expands to fill the time available.
That's the one. If you give yourself a week for a one-day task.
You'll somehow make it take a week.
Yeah.
Procrastination fuel.
So the fix is setting tighter deadlines than you think you need. You often find you get it done way more efficiently. Avoids overcomplicating things just to fill time.
Creates urgency. Focuses effort. Reduces last-minute stress, too.
Right. He also makes a clear distinction between discipline and procrastination.
Okay.
Procrastination is full of excuses. Waiting for the right time, perfect conditions.
The ideal moment that never comes.
Exactly. But real discipline, it's doing what needs doing, regardless of feelings. Inaction, making excuses, they lead to the same place. Failure to reach the goal.
It's about that conscious choice to act, despite feelings or moods.
Definitely. Then there's something called false hope syndrome.
False hope syndrome. What's that?
It's the unrealistic belief that changing behavior is going to be easy, quick.
Setting expectations way too high.
Exactly. Leading to overly restrictive plans you can't possibly stick to, then when you inevitably fail.
You feel discouraged. Maybe give up entirely.
Worse, it can actually reinforce the bad habit.
Yeah.
Professor Peter Herman noted failure is way more common than success in behavior change, often because people aim for these extreme, unsustainable transformations right at the start.
So the takeaway is, set realistic goals. Aim for gradual, sustainable change. Focus on habits, not overnight miracles.
Pretty much. So, when you're looking at what's holding you back, take an honest look. Are you falling into any of these traps? Parkinson's law, excuses, unrealistic hopes.
Self-reflection is key. Identifying those hidden barriers.
Yeah. Because while discipline isn't always fun initially, we can definitely make it harder on ourselves with these unconscious patterns.
Absolutely. Honest self-assessment is crucial.
Now, Walter has a whole chapter on something vital, getting comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yes. Because discipline often is uncomfortable, isn't it? At least at first.
Totally. It doesn't take much discipline to eat junk food or binge TV.
True growth usually happens just outside the comfort zone. Discipline means pushing past that initial resistance, resisting instant gratification.
Exactly. We need to build that mental endurance, that toughness to override the instincts telling us to take the easy path. But here's the encouraging part.
Okay.
Just like willpower, our tolerance for discomfort can be trained, strengthened, by regularly, intentionally doing things that feel uncomfortable. Stepping outside the comfort zone again and again teaches us our fears are often overblown.
Like exposure therapy, confronting fears diminishes their power.
Right. Walter uses the acronym FEAR false evidence appearing real. The only way to disprove the false evidence is to confront it. Step into the discomfort.
Makes sense.
He mentions Jia Jing's TED Talk, the guy who sought rejection for 100 days.
Oh, yeah. To overcome social anxiety. Amazing story.
It shows how deliberately stepping into discomfort can totally change your perspective. Build resilience.
Reframing discomfort as a sign of growth, not something to avoid.
Exactly. And once you build that tolerance, you can better tackle ingrained habits, maybe even addictions that are holding you back. And for this, he introduces urge surfing.
Urge surfing sounds intriguing.
Developed by psychologist Alan Marlett. He compares urges and cravings to ocean waves.
Okay.
They build, they peak, then they crash and recede. Urge surfing is about learning to ride the waves, observe the urge without judgment, without fighting it, until it naturally passes.
So not suppressing it, but observing it, like mindfulness.
Pretty much. Instead of fighting the urge, which can actually make it stronger.
Like blocking a waterfall, the pressure builds.
Right. You just step back, watch the flow. It's about creating distance. Instead of thinking, I feel like eating that cake, reframe it. I am experiencing an urge to eat that cake.
That subtle shift creates separation. You're observing the sensation, not identifying with it.
Exactly. Fighting urges can make them stronger, last longer. Observing them allows them to pass. And they do pass. Usually peak within 20-30 minutes if you don't fight them.
Recognizing urges are temporary, however intense they feel.
He gives steps. Identify where you feel the urge physically. Focus your attention there. Do some slow breathing for a couple of minutes. Visualize the urge as that wave rising and falling. Notice the changes as it subsides.
Approaching it with curiosity, not fear.
Yeah, think of hunger pangs. If you just accept them, observe them, they often fade faster than you expect.
Developing detached awareness, knowing you don't have to act on every impulse.
Right. Now, Waldo shifts focus a bit here, from just setting goals to the critical importance of the system you use to achieve them.
The system. Not just the destination, but the journey, the process.
Exactly, because tons of people set goals, right? But very few actually reach them. Why? Often, the underlying system is flawed or non-existent.
So, goal, desired result. System, the daily habits, processes, routines to get you there.
Perfect summary. He uses the football coach analogy. Focusing only on winning the championship isn't as effective as focusing on daily practice, drills, strategy.
Focus on the process, the system, and the result is more likely to follow.
Right. If you want to win, focus on your system. Goals are necessary, you need a direction, but without a system, you're likely joining the 90% plus whose New Year's resolutions fail.
So the differentiator between winners and losers isn't just the goal itself. Everyone wants to win gold at the Olympics. It's the system, the training, the strategy.
Exactly. And setting goals won't create lasting change if you don't change the underlying habits. You can tidy a messy room with willpower.
But if you don't change the habits that cause the mess, it'll just get messy again.
Right. It's like taking painkillers for a headache caused by dehydration, treating the symptom, not the root cause.
Addressing the underlying behaviors, not just quick fixes.
And here's the hopeful part. If you struggle to build good habits, it might not be you that's the problem. It might be your system that's wrong.
That's empowering. It means you can change the system and get different results.
Totally. Bad habits often stick not because you don't want to change, but because you have the wrong system for change.
Okay, so how do we build better systems?
He introduces the layers of change model. 3 layers.
Go on.
Outcome, that's your goals. Process, that's your habits and systems. Identity, that's your fundamental belief system about yourself.
Outcome, process, identity.
Okay? Focusing only on outcome, the goal, often leads to temporary change. Lose weight for the wedding, then gain it back.
Right, because the underlying habits or identity didn't change.
Exactly. For lasting change, you need to focus on the identity layer.
How does that work?
Think of a smoker trying to quit versus someone who identifies as a non-smoker. That shift in identity is powerful. It drives the behavior.
Your beliefs about yourself shape your actions.
He shares a story about an entrepreneur with a nail-biting habit. Tried everything, nothing stuck. Then he got a professional manicure. Suddenly, he felt pride in his nails. His identity shifted slightly, and the nail-biting stopped. Easily. Permanently.
Wow. Because the behavior aligned with his new self-image.
Exactly. When good habits become part of your identity, they're self-sustaining. It's not about forcing yourself. It's just who you are. Think, I am a reader, not I'm trying to read this book, or I am a runner, not I'm trying to run this marathon.
Shifting focus from the outcome to the type of person you want to become.
Precisely. But negative self-identity works against you too. If you believe I'm always late, your subconscious resists actions that contradict that.
So sometimes progress requires unlearning those negative self-beliefs first.
Definitely. And this idea of deep-seated beliefs and practices leads naturally to Zen Buddhists. Walter mentions them as highly disciplined.
Right, masters of self-control through a different philosophical lens.
Exactly. Walter presents Zen not as a religion, but as this ancient philosophy. Practical tools for coping with life, reducing anxiety, overcoming fear.
And research supports it. Better psychological health.
Yeah, studies link Zen practices like meditation to less stress, better decisions, more calm. He clarifies Zen is about direct experience based on Buddha's teachings. Talks about Satori like a flash of insight. The core is living in the present, seeing everything as connected.
Living in the present. That's key in Buddhism, right?
Yeah.
Past is interpretation, future hasn't happened, so why worry excessively?
Exactly. Unnecessary suffering. Walter even shares a personal story about his high achiever identity causing pressure, fear of failure, made him question if constant achievement really brings lasting happiness.
So Zen encourages letting go of rigid self-definitions, being more present and accepting.
Pretty much. And he explains how Zen principles directly help self-discipline.
Okay.
1. Accepting suffering is part of life, so prepare for it without resisting. 2. Control the mind by focusing on the present, not past regrets or future anxieties. 3. Overcome fear by not dwelling on negative possibilities. Leads to clearer thinking, calmness, better action now.
A mental framework for navigating challenges and staying focused without being derailed by fear or worry.
Right, and to make it concrete, he uses the Shaolin monks as an example, true masters of discipline.
Their routine is legendary, isn't it?
Insane. 5 a.m. to 11 p.m., temple activities, intense kung fu, Buddhist study, very few possessions, shaved heads. It's a whole commitment.
A profound dedication to physical and mental mastery.
He quotes Matthew Ahmet, who trained there. Said the monks have deep gratitude for basics, believe passion brings happiness, not wealth. And crucially, they balance intense training with rest and meditation. They don't just push until they break.
Finding intrinsic motivation and balancing effort with recovery. That's key for sustainability.
Meditation is central for them. Builds psychological strength, quiets the mind chatter, balances activity and rest. They talk about qi, life force, energy.
And Kung Fu, Tai Chi, help focus that qi, leading to resilience.
That's the idea. Focus, balance, resilience. They even claim they can withstand big physical blows through Chai mastery.
The mind-body connection is incredibly strong there.
For them, meditation isn't just a practice, it's a way to connect with their inner selves, find purpose, passion. That's their drive. Walter draws parallels between SEALs and Shaolin monks. Both show exceptional discipline, willingness to sacrifice short-term comfort for long-term goals.
Universal principles of discipline, focus, commitment, underpinning high achievement.
And like all productive people, they follow a routine, with meditation as a powerful tool for self-discipline.
So let's talk meditation. It's not just sitting humming for hours, right?
Definitely not. Walter dispels those myths, says it's more a lifestyle. And the benefits? Huge. Better concentration, focus, more rational decisions, better at delaying gratification, handling challenges calmly.
Training attention, regulating emotions, cultivating inner peace.
He mentions that PNAS study, again, undergrads, felt less anxiety, stress, tiredness after just 7 days of 20 minutes daily meditation.
So you don't need hours. Small, consistent practice yields results relatively quickly.
Right. And those skills give you the inner drive to do what's needed even without motivation. That's the core of self-discipline.
Okay, so how do you actually do it? Techniques.
He introduces a couple. First, the just sitting technique, zazen, practiced by Shaolin monks.
Okay.
Comfortable upright seat chair, cross-legged, lotus, back straight but not stiff, mouth closed gently, soft gaze downwards.
And the focus.
2 main ways. 1, breath awareness, just feeling the air move in and out, stomach breathing ideally. Very calming, good for anxiety, panic attacks.
Grounding, stabilizing. What's the other way?
It's called shikantaza, literally just sitting. You pay attention to everything, internal, external stimuli without judgment. Thoughts come, like clouds passing. Acknowledge them. Don't analyze them. Let them go. Reduces the impact of negative thoughts, redirects energy.
More expansive awareness. Non-reactive observation.
And your mind will wander. That's normal, especially at first.
What do you do then?
Gently, patiently, bring your focus back. No self-criticism. It's a skill. It improves with practice. You can feel progress in about a week of consistent daily practice.
Patience and non-judgment are key. Progress over perfection.
For people who find sitting hard, maybe physical issues, severe anxiety, there's kinhin, Zen walking meditation.
Walking meditation, how does that work?
Bare feet if possible, upright but not stiff posture, weight even. Hands held specifically thumb in palm, fingers wrapped, resting on stomach, right over left. Soft gaze about 6 feet ahead.
Okay.
Then you walk very slowly, clockwise, synchronizing steps with breath. It's about developing self-control through mastering simple movement. Builds a more proactive, stronger mental attitude.
A dynamic way to cultivate mindfulness and awareness through movement.
Walter's advice, start small. 5 minutes morning, 5 evening. Make it non-negotiable like brushing teeth. And crucially, don't try to meditate. Just do it.
That brings us back to the language we use. The power of doing over trying.
Exactly. This is a huge point for Walter. He dedicates a whole chapter to why you should consciously ditch the word try when talking about your goals.
Why? What's the impact?
He argues it's transformative, boosts self-esteem, changes how you see yourself. Words shape our self-image, our success potential. Trying subtly implies doubt.
Like you're already hedging your bets, allowing for failure.
Pretty much. He challenges that old advice, try your best. Sometimes there's no second chance. Trying isn't enough, he says. Become a DOER.
Be decisive, courageous in words and actions.
Right. Leads to more self-respect. Others see you as proactive, a winner. Saying you'll try inherently limits your potential in that moment.
Shifting from trying to doing fosters agency, belief in your ability to succeed.
But being a doer isn't about being reckless. It means being realistic, too. Honest inventory of strengths, weaknesses.
Avoiding the poor me trap, seeking help or skills when needed.
Exactly. It requires total belief in yourself and your path. Effort, self-reflection, and critically define your goals clearly in writing before you start.
Why writing?
Avoids wasted time, energy on vague ideas, prevents getting known as someone who starts but never finishes that kills self-esteem. Choose goals aligned with your abilities, but still challenging. Then commit fully.
Balancing belief with strategic planning, aligning ambition with capability plus commitment.
He mentions Deepak Chopra's motto, don't try, do. Confidence in your direction makes reaching the destination much more likely.
Clear purpose, strong conviction, essential fuel for sustained effort.
Okay, let's talk mindset now. Walter has a chapter called Winner or Loser, which one are you?
Provocative title.
Yeah. His point is, if you're unsure about specific goals, start with the goal of reaching your full potential in everything.
That requires self-awareness and discipline.
Definitely. Life is constant learning, growth. Stagnation means losing ground. He argues there's no neutral. You're always moving towards winner or loser. The choice is yours.
Embracing continuous improvement. Forward momentum.
He gives 5 basic rules for excelling. Rule 1, know what you want, clearly.
Like needing a GPS for an unfamiliar destination. Gotta have a goal.
And add detail, emotional resonance. Connect with your why. Make sure goals align with your values, your purpose.
Clear vision. Understanding motivations. Essential first step.
Rule 2, understand the sacrifice. Achieving anything worthwhile means giving something up.
Time, comfort, money. Maybe a second job for finances, early workouts for weight loss.
Consider the sacrifices beforehand. Be prepared. Decide if the goal is truly worth it.
Acknowledging the costs. Making informed decisions about trade-offs.
Rule 3, don't take shortcuts. Real achievement, real pride comes from personal effort, not quick fixes.
Right. Weight loss pills versus lifestyle change. Earned success feels different, more satisfying, lasting.
Rule 4, don't make one giant leap. Consistent small steps are crucial, maybe more crucial than big bursts.
Initial excitement can lead to burnout if you do too much too soon.
The solution is a realistic plan, followed methodically. Track your progress. Keep it steady.
Sustainable progress through incremental steps over time.
And Rule 5, focus on what you want. Law of attraction idea focus leads to manifestation. Consistent action plus self-belief is key.
Mindset matters. Positive, goal-oriented focus influences actions and outcomes.
Okay, you've got goals, you've got a system, but how do you keep going when it gets tough? When the novelty wears off?
The long haul. When motivation dips.
Walter says you need to fall in love with the process itself. Relying just on motivation or willpower, not sustainable. Doing hard things is hard. Our bodies resist leaving the comfort zone.
Intrinsic motivation, finding joy in the process, is more sustainable than just willpower or external rewards.
This is where the power of association comes in. Think Pavlov's dogs.
Conditioning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Consistently pair an unpleasant task with positive feelings, and eventually you can start to enjoy the task itself. Consistency is vital.
So consciously link hard work with good feelings.
Yeah. He gives examples for, say, writing a business plan. Have your favorite healthy snack drinks ready. Listen to motivational stuff before you start. Nice scented shower before. Light productivity music during. And reward yourself after TV show, book chapter.
Training your brain. Hard work, positive feelings equals enjoyable process.
Exactly. Over time, it becomes more automatic, like the gym example. Associate workouts with favorite energizing music. Makes the idea of going more pleasurable.
Repetition plus positive association makes desired actions feel natural, like brushing teeth.
Another technique? Associate success with your identity. Visualize the person you'll become after achieving the goal. Keeps motivation up.
Connecting daily actions to that desired future self.
And try feeling grateful for the opportunity to improve. A mindset shift.
Focusing on the positive aspects of the process.
He even suggests visual trackers, gold stars on a calendar for completed actions. Sounds simple, but seeing that progress provides achievement encourages you to keep going.
Visual cues reinforce positive behaviors.
Yeah.
Tangible proof of effort.
Now, what about negative emotions? Anger, envy, anxiety? We usually try to suppress them.
But Walter suggests harnessing them, using them as fuel.
Exactly. Take anger or rage. Instead of lashing out, channel that energy into a workout, into proving doubters wrong on a long-term goal. He mentioned someone using being mocked about weight as fuel for major weight loss.
Reframing negative emotions as raw energy for positive change.
Even envy. Instead of resentment, recognize it signals something you desire. Financial freedom, fitness.
Okay.
Use that feeling not to tear others down, but to create an action plan to achieve it for yourself. Evaluate the feeling, then act.
Envy is a clue to your own unmet desires,
All right.
pointing towards growth areas.
And anxiety. First, conquering fears feels good. That's motivating in itself. Second, anxiety can prompt constructive action, job insecurity, maybe update your resume, network.
Using anxiety as a cue to prepare, not just worry.
Right. Don't obsess over worst-case scenarios. Use the feeling to take steps. Deep breathing, writing down fears, and brainstorming solutions can help. Reframe fear as a sign you're stepping outside your comfort zone, which is good.
Transforming fear from paralyzing to motivating. A catalyst for action.
Even sadness and despair, harder, obviously, but acknowledge they're temporary. Loss can lead to reflection, clarity on priorities, better focus. Some achieve goals in memory of loved ones. Negative times can fuel creativity. He mentions a study on creative professionals being productive when not in the best moods.
So immersing yourself in a creative outlet when feeling down might help channel those emotions.
It's a suggestion, finding productive ways to process even difficult feelings.
Interesting perspective. Harnessing the full spectrum of emotion.
Now, a quick detour into two principles Walter mentions. Sturgeon's Law.
Vaguely rings a bell. Something about crud.
Yeah, 90% of everything is crud. Applies broadly, not just sci-fi where it started. And the Pareto principle.
The 80-20 rule. 80% of results from 20% of effort.
Right, like 80% of land owned by 20% of people. 80% of peas from 20% of plants. 80% of business from 20% of customers.
Useful patterns to understand distribution of quality, effort. Helps focus time and energy strategically.
Okay, let's talk failure. It's going to happen, right? On the path to big goals.
Absolutely inevitable. Part of the process. So how do you handle it?
Walter says, learn from every failure. Use losses as stepping stones. Objectively evaluate what went wrong, but don't dwell on the setback.
Easier said than done sometimes.
Yeah.
Emotional investment makes it hard.
True. People get stuck persisting in failing efforts because they're too invested. An objective view helps. Even failed attempts or practice in self-discipline. You learn what doesn't work, build on what does.
Adopting a learning mindset. Extracting lessons from mistakes.
And develop the wisdom to know when to quit gracefully, when to pivot to something more effective instead of banging your head against a wall.
Knowing when to persevere, when to pivot. That's a critical skill.
Mm.
Requires determination and flexibility.
And always focus energy on the present and future, not past what-ifs. That's more productive.
Right. Learn, adapt, move forward.
Finally, and this is crucial, avoiding burnout. Building discipline is great, but pushing too hard too long, that's damaging.
Definitely. Need to distinguish normal stress from actual burnout.
Right. Burnout isn't just brain freeze. It's serious physical and mental exhaustion. Low mood, can't make decisions, hopelessness. might need professional help.
And anyone can experience it, right? Depends on pressure, coping skills. High achievers are often susceptible.
Totally. Chronic work-life imbalance shouldn't be the norm. But the good news, burnout usually creeps up. It's not sudden.
So you can see warning signs if you pay attention
Yeah,
and prevent it.
hopefully. Walter advises putting a cap on discipline. Learn to say no to non-essentials. Maintain a healthy routine, sleep, hydration, balanced diet. These aren't time wasters. They're essential for mental capacity, willpower.
Self-care isn't selfish. It's necessary for sustained performance.
And take real time out. Properly relax, detach from work thoughts, recharge. Even elite performers, SEALs, Shaolin monks, they don't go 24/7. They rest, recover.
Balancing effort with proper recovery is vital.
He also notes burnout is often driven by our perception of workload. Try framing demanding tasks by their long-term benefits, not just the immediate burden.
Mindset again, reframing the challenge.
And apply discipline to the workload itself. Avoid distractions, procrastination, prevent backlogs, self-induced stress.
Effective time management, prioritization, key burnout prevention tools.
He suggests scheduling projects realistically, maybe even overestimate time needed, get advice, reduces stress, provides buffer.
Proactive planning helps manage workload and expectations.
And if burnout has already happened,
Take real time off, like recovering from a physical injury. Rest body and mind.
communicate it. Don't return until fully recovered, and use the recovery time to reflect. Identify triggers, develop prevention strategies, learn to say no more effectively maybe.
Recovery is essential, and it's an opportunity to learn, adapt, build healthier habits moving forward.
So we've covered a lot. A real deep dive into self-discipline based on Daniel Walter's book. And remember, just engaging with this, listening, that's a positive first step.
Absolutely. Awareness is the beginning.
Building discipline takes time, like strengthening a muscle. Even small daily actions count. 5 minutes of a new habit, waking up 30 minutes earlier. They build momentum.
It's a marathon, not a sprint. Consistency, patience, long-term view.
If you chose to listen to this, it shows you want growth, change. That's a great place to start. Everyone successful felt that initial, this is impossible feeling.
Recognizing that shared experience is encouraging helps you push through early hurdles.
It's consistent good habits becoming automatic that leads to optimal functioning, achieving those dreams.
The process itself transforms you.
And Walter's final message is powerful. Self-discipline is the ultimate key, more important than knowledge, talent, skill. Think of potential unrealized due to lack of it.
Versus those who achieved greatness through it. Jordan, Houston, Musk, examples he uses.
Exactly. Discipline translates potential into real-world achievement.
It empowers us to create the lives we want.
And remember, your journey impacts others too. Your success can inspire people around you. So take these principles, start implementing them, expect transformation.
Take those first steps. Embrace the growth. Start building the life you're capable of.
We really wish you every success in mastering the incredible power of self-discipline.